Hey, everybody, I'd like to welcome all of you to another episode of Defusing the WMSCOG. I'm your host, Edgar, and today I got a special guest. I know I always say special guest, but I consider her a good friend of mine. I've seen her grow, and I'm just so proud of her for stepping up and doing this, and I can't wait to hear her story. Milolo, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Milolo, and I am from the Ridgewood, New Jersey church. I was there for about 8 years, and then I spent the last 4 years in Cranford, New Jersey.
All right, so an East Coast member. So let's get started in your story. First of all, 8 years, that's a decade, that's a long time. Tell me a little bit of from the beginning, like how did you get involved with this crazy cult? How did you join it? How were you approached, right? And where were you in life when that happened as well?
hmm Yeah, so I was about 19 years old when I first got invited to the church. I was invited by a coworker of mine. Me and him used to work together. And I remember him sitting down and praying before he ate. And normally I wouldn't really care about that, but something about like he didn't look like the type of person that went to church. And so I'm like, "Oh, you pray, you go to church?" And he's like, "Yeah, we believe in God the Father and God the Mother." And at the time, I thought to myself, like, that's really weird. I never heard of anything like that. And so he invited me, but I never went. Um, and then after that, maybe about a few months afterwards, I get approached by two brothers. And this time they showed me the verses in the Bible. And I'm like, okay, like this is my second time hearing about this. Now I'm seeing the verses, so maybe I should go and check it out. And so we exchanged numbers, but I still never went because the idea of going to a church and a Bible study at 19 years old just didn't sound fun to me. So I kind of just dodged them. And then from there, I was invited a third time, right around the same location. And this time I'm like, okay, this is the third time that I'm hearing about this. And me and the girl that invited me actually have this, like, our names are so similar. Literally, first and last name are almost alike.
Wow.
And so I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe I should go check it out. Maybe God is calling me to go to this church. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Okay, so you were approached three
hmm
times, and that's
Yeah.
actually that's pretty crazy because I've heard of people that's been approached like two, three different times, and so
Yeah.
this happens a lot, and of course, when it does happen, like you said, we take it as a sign from God, because we're like, wow, not once, not twice, but three times, like, okay, something's happening here. But little did
Exactly.
we know what was what was around the corner, right? So let me ask you this, like, where were you in life kind of when you got preached to? Because you say you're 19 years old, but at that time, like,
Mhm.
that's very young. So like, I've seen I've talked to a lot of members, and usually we get approached when we're very young, but talk to me a little bit
Mhm.
about how your life was during the time that you kind of got approached by the WMSCOG.
Yeah, so prior to the WMSCOG, I was actually attending another church with my family, and we were there for about five and a half to 6-ish years. And at that time, I felt like, you know what, it's time for me to leave this place. All my friends left. I was looking for another home church. But I was looking, but I wasn't looking. But I did want to be a part of another church community. Um, Also, I was in school, I was working part-time, so that's pretty much where I was in life, trying to figure out what is it that I want to do with my life. Um, and that's pretty much where I was at that time.
Okay. So once you so you got approached by you actually, approached your coworker, you thought it was fascinating about him praying. And then you
Mhm.
said later on you got
Yeah.
approached by two brothers. But was this, while you were out shopping or something? Was that at work as well, or where was that at?
So I got approached at Target.
Mm, okay, yeah, that's a hot spot for
Yeah,
this place. Targets, Walmart's, the
they love
mall.
Target. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
endless encounters and stories of these places. I think like about 70% of the church has is probably trespassed from Targets and Walmarts nationwide.
Oh my God. It's so embarrassing because I remember going on many short terms and even like just preaching during the week. The minute you walk into Target, like it's like they recognize you right away and you get kicked out like almost instantly. And it just always felt so embarrassing. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm so tired of being kicked out of this place. Like, and sometimes you would go with members that are so bold, like they want to like, preach second coming Christ and God the Mother and seven thunders and everything and so loud. And I'm
yeah.
like, dude, like we're about to get kicked out. Like just, take it easy.
Yeah, it's like they're
So
so lost in the sauce that it's like almost they want to get kicked out because you almost feel like you're
mhm.
extra holy if you do get kicked out because then you're being persecuted for the truth, right?
Yes. Yep.
All
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
So the third time that you were approached, you said you were approached by a sister. Where was that at?
It was in the exact same place the brothers preached to me.
Okay. Fascinating. So
Hmm.
what was it that actually, I know it was the whole three times is the third time's the charm, but like when she was talking to you, did she sound convincing? Like did you right away like did were you like, okay, this kind of makes sense. Like I believe this, or were you kind of like I want to kind of see if what they're saying is true because this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So when she and another brother, was two of them that approached me the last time. This time they showed me the verses in the Bible. So it wasn't just a conversation. I actually got to see the verses that they were proving about God the Mother. And at the time I thought, okay, you know what? This kind of makes sense. Let me go and check it out and see what they're talking about.
Okay. So how long after
Mhm.
that conversation did you actually go to the church?
So I was invited on a Sunday, and then I believe they had a seminar for the Seal of God. And
Mm,
so I believe that seminar was the following Thursday, and that's when I went.
okay. And so take me to
Hmm.
that. Where how was that? What was your reaction to
Hmm.
what was going on? What was your first impression like?
So my first impression was I thought it was a really, really beautiful church. It was the Ridgewood Church in New Jersey, and it's very, very big. And I walked in, and they had this really huge banquet, and I met up with my branch, and she showed me around, and she introduced me to some of the sisters. And I thought, you know what, like this is a really nice place, nice environment. I really love the fact that there were different people from different like different backgrounds, like Black, white, Hispanic. It was very mixed, and everyone was very friendly. So I really, really enjoyed like that part, like when I first got to the church that day.
Yeah, yeah. I also remember, having that same feeling. Like I thought it was so like diverse, and
Yeah,
it was amazing, because you feel the love, everybody's talking to you, everybody's welcoming you, and you feel so good at first, So yeah, I remember those feelings
yeah.
as well. So take me to your, the time when you go to this seminar and you're hearing what they got to say. You're getting showered with
Mhm.
love. It's the love bombing phase. And during that time, like, were they studying with you at all? Like, or was it just a seminar? Did they take you to like a separate room and study with you one on one, or did they invite you later to come back for like a study?
So after the seminar, they asked me what I thought, And I believe I mentioned that it was a very different perspective. I've never heard of, a Bible study in the way that they were teaching. And then they invited me to do more individual studies later on. So I believe I went the very next day and I studied the seal of God. Sorry, not the seal of God. I studied the forgiveness of sins in Christ on Sang Hong. And from there, like I was starting to go like almost every day, because at that time I was like, wow, like you're telling me second coming Christ came. I want to know more. I want to know everything. And so I soaked everything up like a sponge.
Yeah. At first,
Mm-hmm.
it's breathtaking. You feel like there's nothing like it. There's no
Yeah.
feeling in the world. These people have all the answers, and we're so young. We're young, we're naive. If they told us,
Yeah.
that the moon is made out of cheese, we'd probably believe it. And it just speaks to how we're very naive and immature at this time. And we're very gullible, to be honest. Like we're very gullible. And they do a good job of making us lower our guard with the love bombing. And so I can just
Mm-hmm.
imagine. So how many studies did it take for you to get baptized?
Oh man. Um, I think I studied about maybe 8 to 10 subjects before I got baptized.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. At the time, my thought process was, okay, I understand that it's important, but I felt scared. That's why I kind of kept like delaying my baptism.
Okay. So yeah, because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of members, they get baptized after the first study, and some members take longer
Mm-hmm.
than others. Some take weeks, some take
Mm-hmm.
months. So what was it that I finally like made you make the decision to want to get baptized?
So, okay, so it's a bit of a story, because even the night that I got baptized, I was still hesitant. And
Mm.
I don't want to outwardly say that I was forced. Maybe after explaining, you can let me know. But I remember I came for a study and I was supposed to study with my branch, the one that invited me. But apparently she wasn't there, even though she knew I was coming. And so they set me up with another teacher. They set me up with this really, really strong deaconess. And my study was actually in the baptism room. And so I remember studying Seal of God with this deaconess. And she specifically said that I'm playing Russian roulette with my life. And she took the baptism robe, she put it on the table, and she's like, so let's get baptized. So then
Wow.
out of nowhere, my branch comes in, even though she wasn't around. And she's like, oh, are you ready to get baptized? And I'm like, I'm still not ready yet. Like I want to, but not yet. And
Yeah.
she said, well, if you knew how important this was, you would have been baptized already. And she said that the baptizer is behind the door. All you have to do is get changed. We have everything here for you. You'll be fine. And she walked out. And I'm standing there in the baptism room and I'm thinking to myself, and this is how I felt. Like, if they're watching this, they may have another story of how things went, but this is honestly how I remember things. And I remember standing in the baptism room and thinking to myself, if I don't get baptized, like they're not gonna let me leave. That's honestly how I felt. And I'm battling, like, should I get baptized? Should I not? Should I make something up? And then I just ended up getting baptized that night. And afterwards, I felt really good. I felt like clean. But looking back, it did kind of feel forced in a way, because I specifically said I wasn't ready, but they were like, it's not going to be a big deal. Like, you should have been baptized already. So that's how it went down the night I got baptized.
That is crazy. And let me just say my opinion, and I think everybody's that's watching the opinion, that was definitely
Mm-hmm.
forced. Of course, the WMSCOG does a good job of, trying to, weasel their way out of things by saying, well, we didn't force you to do this. But if you're putting, the fear of hell into someone, and giving them ultimatums and making them feel like there is no other choice, or, well, what kind of faith do you have? These are things that push people into the direction that they want you to go. I mean, what more can they do? The person that supposedly wasn't there was literally waiting right behind the door for that study to be over to push you into getting baptized. They're telling you you're playing Russian roulette with your life. Russian roulette ends in death most of the time. That's an analogy, you know what I mean, for death. So it's just everything that they're doing, and again, this is something that I guarantee you this was not the first time that they've done that. I guarantee you that those same words that they used with you is probably the same words they used with multiple members, because I remember in my case, I had the certain words that I would use, and we hear it all the time. Members tell the same stories, like, oh, we're told if you leave here tonight without getting baptized, who's to say you don't get hit by a bus on your way home, or stuff like that. And so of course, this puts pressure on you. And again, remember, you're 19 years old. You're 19 years old. I mean, you're all alone in this place. These people, you don't know them. You don't know them like that. And it's so crazy. Like it's really like it's Delulu what goes on in that place. And but of course, like you said, you felt better after the fact, because I know that, for instance, myself, when me and my family got baptized in the church, it was like late at night, and yeah, we were kind of creeped out. You don't know what's going on. You barely meet these people. They're telling you, here's your bathrobe, go in this room, undress, and then put this robe on, and we're about it. You don't know who these people are, what they're capable of. But of course, after the fact, you kind of feel a little bit at ease, but it doesn't mean that you know what you got yourself into. So let me ask you this: once that happened, once you got baptized, what were you feeling, and like how did they begin to begin to act and like treat you? Did you continue to study like constantly? Did you take a break, or take me through that process?
Yeah, so after I got baptized, I continued to study. I was so eager to know the word of God. Every study just felt like wow, wow, wow. And they still showed me a lot of love. Um, I had a very, very nice branch. Sh For me, she kind of felt like not just like a sister, but really felt like a friend. And so she always gave me that special love, extra treatment. And I feel like that's something that helped me continue to study and stay. Um, and so, yeah, I continued to study. And then I think maybe about after a year of studying and, preaching little by little, I became like a gospel worker. But I did notice that maybe about after a year or a little bit less, the treatment definitely wasn't the same. As you continue to grow and you become more of a gospel worker, they don't treat you with that same love and care. Now it's like, okay, you know the truth, you know the reality of this world. They're expecting you to be there. And, it went from like, oh, hi, how are you, sister? Oh, continue to study, okay, to, oh, God bless you. Like you need to be here for this, you need to be here for that. Oh, you didn't give contribution for this, you didn't give contribution for that. Rebukings left and right. And so yeah, the treatment definitely did change as I became a gospel worker.
Let me ask you this, Milolo.
Mm-hmm.
How's your relationship with your parents? I know this is kind of off topic, but I got a point with this. How's your relationship like with your family?
Like you mean now or like before during
Before,
the cult?
before.
So my relationship with my family before, was really good. You know, actually, I have two younger brothers, and we spent a lot of time together growing up, and we were really, really close. And I love them dearly. Um, and I remember, I just want to mention this one thing. I remember, like, after a year of me, like, finally being a gospel worker, my youngest brother at the time, he was, I'm gonna say 9 or 10 years old. And I remember coming home one day, and he was like, "Oh, are you gonna stay home tonight?" Or he asked me some question, and I'm like, "Yeah, I might stay, or I don't know if I'm gonna be here tomorrow." And I asked him why, and he started breaking down in tears, saying how much he missed me.
Wow.
And that absolutely killed me because, like, that's my youngest brother, you know, we spent so much time together. Like, me and him are like super close. But at the time, I thought to myself, I have to continue to do the gospel, so not just I can be saved, but also my youngest brother can be saved, so my parents could be saved, so my other brother can be saved. So even though it killed me to hear him, to see him in that kind of way, I felt like I have to be strong for him so he can go to heaven with me.
So heartbreaking to hear you say that because this place, unfortunately, our families, there's a lot of casualties, with our relationship with our families that get strained, and we put our loved ones through so much, but again, it's not our fault. It's what the WMS puts in our minds, that like you said, when you're in that gospel worker mode, like that's all that matters, and you think that by doing your best that maybe father and mother will bless you to bring your family and save your family. And so yeah, I can totally understand that. The reason I asked is because I could see, like, okay, I'll take that example with your brothers. You have a lot of love with your brothers. Do you ever feel like when before the cult, like when you and your brothers, you guys love each other unconditionally, right? Like from as
Yeah.
far as you can remember until now, the love has always been there, right, from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because that kind of love, that's real love, right? And it never, you might have
Mhm.
rocky situations here and there, but that love is always there, it's always present, and it never fades away because it's true love. And the reason I bring that up is because when I brought up the love bombing of the WMSCOG, we hear the same story every time. Members, when they first come, they're showered with love. There's so
Mhm.
much love. Yeah, everything that you feel like, wow, this is heaven on earth. Like these are the best people. But little by little, that love begins to fade away, and the real starts to show, right? And so now all of a
Yes.
sudden you're not priority anymore. Now your priority is other people, and again, I was in the church. I remember we would teach members, like, yeah, when members come in right away, you need to shower them with love and hit them with the "we love you,"
Mhm.
and make them feel like like they're your family, and
One.
make them feel at home, but again, that's only at the beginning, and like you said, once you start transitioning into becoming a gospel worker, unfortunately that begins to change. Let me ask you this, Milolo. So you're saying you're a year in, you become a gospel worker. How was that like, and how long was it after that point where you noticed your first red flag?
Oh man. Um, so I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no problem. So you became a gospel worker. You're saying after a year you became a gospel worker. After you become a gospel
Yep.
worker, what was that situation like? How did you feel? And what was
Mhm.
that transition like? What was asked of you? What all were you doing? And also, when did you notice your first red flag as a gospel worker?
Um, so About after a year of, like, or once I became a gospel worker, um, my free time pretty much just vanished. Um, I was in school and I was also working part-time, and my life was, my life first and then the gospel. But once I became a gospel worker, I had to figure out how I can make my life more like a gospel worker life. So, you know, instead of taking care of myself on Sundays and, maybe spending time with my family or whatnot, it went to the church. Um, Sundays, as you know, is like a big gospel worker kind of day. So you go to the church at 8 a.m. for a preaching assembly or breakfast. Afterwards, you preach until maybe about 6 o'clock. And then after that, you have dinner, you come back, you watch a movie, and you preach practice. And then you work on the sermons, and you come on Friday for cleaning. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, you go preaching or prepare for a seminar. Mondays are laundry days, but really a true gospel worker is going to find themselves in Zion, doing something. And so my life pretty much just became gospel life. I 12 years is a very, very long time. It kind of just all feels like a big blur, but my life pretty much just became gospel, everything gospel, waking up at 5 a.m. to pray with mother, not really having a social life, not taking care of my physical life at all, just everything gospel. And I remember them even mentioning during an education that your life, you should plan your life according to the gospel. Gospel always comes first. And so that's pretty much how my life was. Um, and as far as like red flags, this is probably going to sound so crazy, but I feel like um, I it was hard for me to recognize red flags, because even if something was wrong, I saw it as right because everything happens for a reason, and somehow, some way, father and mother allowed that to happen for a reason. So I didn't really see anything as like a red flag. I just saw things more like everything happens for a reason, even if it's a bad situation. Father, mother allowed it to happen so we could learn something.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely understand, that point of view because yeah, when you're and that just shows
Yeah.
how committed you were to it and how much you really believed in it because when you really
Yeah.
really have such a strong faith, you can't see anything wrong with it. Even if things are going on, you justify them in your own mind and just chalk it up to well, that's their faith, their father and mother know why these things are happening. These are my thoughts, not God's thoughts. And so stuff like that.
Exactly.
But let me just say this to what you
Hmm.
said before. Man,
Hmm.
that sounds exhausting. You brought so much PSTD, like just like thinking of how exhausting every day was in that place. Like, can you take me
Hmm.
through like your what was a Sabbath day for you like? From like the beginning to the end. Take us through
Hmm.
Milolo's regular Sabbath day when you were deep into the WMSCOG.
Yeah. So a typical Sabbath day for me, I would wake up like around 6:30, 7 o'clock, get ready, and then the Ridgewood, New Jersey church has very limited parking. And so we would have to, gospel workers only, not parents or like regular members, gospel workers had to park in a very specific area. So instead of getting to the church by like, let's say 8:30, 8:45, I got there maybe like around 8:15, 8:20, just because I had to make the shuttle. So after that, have service, and then afterwards, um, we would cook. I did a lot of cooking in the church,
Uh, uh,
in
uh,
between
I'm
services.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said something that
Yeah.
that that kind of made me puzzled a little bit. You said shuttle. You would
Okay.
get there
Yeah.
earlier to shuttle. What do you mean by that?
So we would have to drop our cars off in a specific location because we didn't have enough parking spaces at the church. So all gospel workers had to park their car in a very specific area, and then they would shuttle us to the Ridgewood Church.
Wow. So
Yeah.
okay, that's crazy. I've never heard of anything like that in the Midwest area. So it must have been a lot
Yeah,
of
it's pretty
members.
bad. Like, yes, there's a lot of members there. I think on average they have about like 250 to 300 members. And the town of Ridgewood does not like the church at all. So they actually took away like 20 spots from the parking lot. And so it made it even harder for us to park. So only those that have like a very specific mission, if you were like one of the sisters that does the doors, flowers, you know, moms, parents, uh, older people, they were the only ones that were allowed to keep their car there, or if you were a new member. But if you're a gospel worker, you're preaching 2, 3 times a week, you're practicing, you're on the road to become a teacher or a team leader, you had to park your car at the shuttle or at the designated spot. And if you didn't, if you were running late, they would actually post your license plates on the group chat and tag you
Uh,
so you can move your car after first service. Yeah,
Wow. That's
yeah,
insane. Yeah, no wonder the town didn't like them. I mean honestly, like so these people these people like what do
yeah.
they really do for the communities that they're in? They don't preach to the homeless. They actually tell you that the homeless are cursed and they're like that because of their sin in heaven. They don't help, the less
Mm-hmm.
fortunate. They don't do any of these things. They're harder on their own, their most dedicated members. They're constantly being bugaboos at Walmarts and Targets and the malls and just, annoying people, and again, like again, I was in there, right? And I'm not trying to bash on the
Yeah,
members because I know that they're lost in the sauce, but think about it,
yeah.
like, sometimes people, they work Monday through Friday, they go to the store to get some groceries, and the last thing you want to hear is somebody coming up to you
Mm-hmm.
talking about, did you know there's a God the Mother, and if you don't, come to the church right now, you're gonna go to hell. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just crazy to think about all that. But anyway, sorry to go off topic. So okay, so you get there early. You gotta get there early. You gotta get the shuttle because you don't want to get blasted on the group chat. So once you get there
Yep.
early, take me through the next steps of your Sabbath day.
So yeah, let's say for example, service starts at 9 a.m. You have to be seated like 15 minutes ahead, but really you should be in there by 8:30 so you can pray and get your mind ready so that way you can be ready to sing by 8:45. So like the Sabbath day literally started from like 7 a.m. till like almost midnight, sometimes 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Such a long day. But after morning service, usually they'll have announcements and then welcoming any new people. Sometimes we would watch a video from head office, or if the East Coast made a special video, we would watch that. But usually I would spend time cooking. If not cooking, we would go preaching in between service. And then after that, it's lunchtime. So we go, we sit, we eat, we have lunch, we clean up. After that, we get ready for afternoon service. And then after afternoon service, you're preach practicing. If there's a huge event the next day, you're getting ready for that event. Um, it's so crazy because the Sabbath you're supposed to rest, right? But
Yeah.
that entire day, it's so crazy. And I remember my first Sabbath day there. It felt like heaven, honestly, because everyone's showering you with so much love. You're literally being treated like a king and queen. But like once I became a gospel worker, the Sabbath day felt so heavy. Like I couldn't wait to get home and sleep. I felt like I ran a marathon. That's how busy you are on the Sabbath day. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's actually a good point that you bring up. And I was actually thinking of that while you were talking, that
Mm-hmm.
Sabbath Shabbat means rest. And in the WMSCOG, that's like the opposite of what rest
Literally.
actually looks like. Because I mean, you're so run down. I remember by second service, like you practically had to put toothpicks in your eye in between your eyelids just to stay awake because it was so horrible. I mean, I remember like during the second
Mm-hmm.
service, the brothers would literally like
Yeah.
be stabbing their thighs with pins and pencils
Yep.
just to stay awake, and
Mm-hmm.
pinching yourselves,
Yep.
pinching your neighbor. Did you guys go through stuff like that?
We did all of that, and I remember there's a very specific sister that would take peppermint oil and literally dab it in her eye so she could
Oh
stay
my
awake.
god. Wow.
Yes.
That is crazy. But in the oh my god. In our church in the Colorado area, they had a vending machine
Yeah.
just for energy drinks. That's how bad it was. I remember
No way.
there was a missionary going around and giving brothers pre-workout pills just so that they could stay awake. Like, I mean, this is crazy. Like the sermons are already boring enough. So think about it, right? Like that they say that
Yeah.
their preaching is like their faith is 7 times stronger than that of the early church, but those
Mm-hmm.
sermons were so boring. Like all the members are,
Yeah.
asleep. Like they're passing out during these services. Like you guys got to do better, WMSCOG.
Literally.
You got to do better. Keep your members awake.
And you know what? I knew it was gonna be bad when I was falling asleep during new songs. That's how I knew I was not gonna make it out of this sermon alive.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
those sermons were really just, and then they would add all these examples, and they would just keep going on and on and on. And it's like, dude, just cut it already. You can see half of your members are falling asleep. Why continue? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm
They're
so
they're
happy I don't have to go through that.
they're slipping in and out of consciousness while the deacon or the
Literally.
pastor is just rambling and rambling and rambling on.
Mhm.
It's so wild. It's so wild now, looking back at it in hindsight, like,
Yeah.
it was like I remember, members keeping services and some members would be falling asleep and then you could tell that they had no idea what was going on because they would
Yeah.
just randomly shout out amen when it wasn't even a time to
Yeah.
say amen. And like they just woke up from a
Yeah.
bad dream or something. Like
Yes.
it's so wild. But so anyway, so after that, how would you feel after the Sabbath days? Like when you finally got to go home, did you feel like you rested at all on the Sabbath day?
No, you know what? I used to feel, I'll say this. I feel like as I became a gospel worker, I became so much more of a hypocrite. I feel like I became so much of a horrible person. Seriously, like I was the most judgmental, most evil person. And then I would go to the Sabbath and I would listen to the sermon and I'm like, okay, you know what? Like I should put this into practice. But then I would go home and I hate to say this, but just to be transparent, I would treat my brothers so horribly. I literally became a worse person the more I became a gospel worker. And I remember even my brothers calling me out, like, when you're at church, you're one way, but when you come here, totally different. And so I was battling, feeling like, man, like, why is it that I'm turning into this like evil person? I wasn't like this before the church, but it's like I felt like such a hypocrite. I felt so judgmental. And so I would battle that like at the ending of the Sabbath and then also throughout the week feeling so guilty. And then of course after the Sabbath day, I wouldn't feel well rested. I would feel like I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. Like this was a long day. I don't want to have to go tomorrow, but I already signed up to cook or I already said to my group leader that I'm going to go tomorrow. And so I would get like that feeling like I really don't want tomorrow to come, but I already signed up, so now I have to show up no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hearing you say that, yeah, it kind of reminds me of like having an alter ego when you're in the church. Like
Yeah.
you really do. It's a cult personality. It's like that it's not you, but you're so
Hmm.
like caught up in it that in the moment. And yeah, you just act like a different person, and only the people
Yeah.
that really know you, like your family, your friend, like your real friends, your loved ones, they're the ones that can see you slipping away. And that's the crazy thing about this place, is that they'll have you believe that that's actually like you getting closer to God and becoming like a child of God, but
Hmm.
actually totally different, because the fruit of the spirit is not what that place produces. See, if you were really getting closer to God and growing in a relationship with God, your relationship with your family, your relationship with other people, with what the Bible calls your neighbors, those should improve. They should say, wow, you're such a nicer person now than what you were before. You look more at peace now than what you looked before. But honestly, after a Sabbath, the way you described it, same the way same. For me, like how I felt after the Sabbath, if I went around my loved ones, they're looking at me like I look like Beetlejuice after the Sabbath, all beat up and you know what I mean, spit out. Like they're
Yeah.
not gonna, they don't want to join that place, and so it's funny. They always tell you like, be the example for your family, so that you can bring them in. What
Yeah.
example? Like they're looking at you like you got hit by a Mack truck. Like, they're like, man, I don't want to join that place. My brother, my son, my sister, whatever, they don't look
Yeah.
happy. I remember my brother and my sister would look at me all the time like, I don't want to join that place, and you kind
Yeah.
of, that instead of realizing what they're actually saying, it actually pushes you deeper, like, okay, I'm not doing enough. And it's so
Hmm.
like performance based, like it's so crazy, like you just got to keep doing and doing and doing, and it gets exhausting. It gets so exhausting. And that's why I
Yeah.
always said, I remember when I made my first video with Great Light Studios, I said I felt no peace. And, literally, I didn't feel the peace until after I left. I didn't understand what a Sabbath really felt like until after I left that place. There
Hmm.
is no rest. There is no peace in the WMSCOG. It's a
Not at all.
yeah, it's constant, worrying about, is Father coming today? Is he coming tomorrow? Did I keep the service in spirit and in truth? Why am I questioning this? Oh, I shouldn't look at this. I shouldn't look at that. I shouldn't have talked to this person. And it's just a constant state of worry. And so
Hmm.
let me ask you this, like, you said you had a great relationship with your family before the cult. Once you become a gospel worker, once you're going through, that whole phase and you're deep into it, and your services are exhausting because you're so plugged into the church. How did that affect your relationship with your family and friends, that you had before the cult?
Yeah, so my relationship with my family definitely changed. They stopped inviting me to gatherings. Um, we would talk about so many different things, but once I became a gospel worker, now there's not that much for me to talk to them about, because all I'm thinking about is I need to save them. And so any chance I got to speak with my family, to, have regular conversation, I would always slip in Passover, Sabbath day. I would always slip in some type of truth from that church in order to try and get them to be saved or come. And then my one best friend that I had, that I actually met in the other church, um, I tried inviting her too. And I remember I tried keeping the relationship alive, but I wasn't keeping it alive because I really wanted to still have a, friendship with her. I was keeping it alive so I can preach to her. And so I remember any chance I get, I would always let her know about the church. I would invite her to dinner, not to, just catch up and see what's going on, but to invite her and let her know about the truth, right? And because I kept only talking about the church and whatnot, and not being the normal person that I was before, those relationships started to just die out. And so, I lost friendships. I lost that relationship that I had with my family. I was a completely different person. And it's so crazy because I look back and I didn't realize how much that I changed. I didn't realize that I was losing myself. I thought I was still the same. But, now that I'm out and I look back, I'm like, wow, I was a completely different. I don't even know who I was the last 12 years. And so, it's sad because the relationships that I had with, certain friends are no longer there. And I wish that things didn't end up the way that they did. I wish I still had certain friends, but you know, I see it as like, well, everything happens for a reason, and you know, I'm still young. I could still make new friends, which I have been doing. Um, but yeah, relationships definitely have changed once I was a gospel worker and lost in the sauce.
Yeah, unfortunate. It's just one of those things that if you're really a dedicated member, like I mean, if you really are dedicated, you really have faith in this place, it's an automatic that your friendships with family and friends are gonna suffer. They're gonna strain because of the commitment that you have to have in the cult. They're gonna push you towards that, and and again, their program is to slowly push you away from your loved ones, and it's all there's a reason for it. The more that you get away from people that genuinely love you and show you unconditional love, the more that you belong to them, the harder it is for you to get out, because when you leave, you feel alone. You have no one. You've literally pushed everyone away. And it's so evil, the strategy that they use, and it's so bad how they try to justify it with the Bible. And again, it's one of those things that the WMSCOG is not the only cult that does that. It's a lot of cults that do that. And unfortunately, it's the members who join who are the ones who suffer. But Milolo, let me ask you this. So, as now that we're kind of getting, into the middle of your story, tell me now some of the things that you might have, we talked a little bit about red flags. I know you said that at that time you were kind of like just looking at it as these things happen for a reason. But can you get into maybe some of those stories that you might have looked at it that way, but now looking back at it in hindsight, you're like, oh, that was a red flag. Like that wasn't good. Can you remember anything that can come to your mind right now?
Yes. So there was a leader that we had in Ridgewood. Um, he was very, very tough, like no nonsense kind of leader. And I remember we had our very first walkathon in Washington, D.C. And so we all went as a church, and we went to the walkathon. And then there was a lot of things that went on during that trip. And because there's a lot of crazy things that happened, the leader wanted to have a meeting with everybody. And so he posted on the group me, if you want to become a gospel worker, come to Zion on Thursday at such and such time. And so we all went to Zion that day. And I remember he just started rebuking us for all of these things that were going on and taking place. And me, I'm the type of person where it's like, if it's a very serious situation, I'm going to laugh. And so I think he saw my face like trying to hold it in. And
Yeah.
then he pointed at me and he started rebuking me in front of everybody. He called me a weasel. He
Wow.
said that new members cannot learn anything from me. Don't follow this type of example. And he just started calling me out, like literally in front of everybody. And at the time, I looked up at a picture of Zango Ja, and I thought to myself, wow, mother must love me so much in order for me to get rebuked like this in front of everybody else. That's how I took it.
Wow.
But I still felt really bad. I felt so bad that I didn't even want to come to Zion that following Sabbath. I remember going to prep day and literally having my head down and feeling very shameful. I remember that entire Sabbath, I had my head down because I felt such shame. And I thought, it's okay. I understand that I need to get rebuked. But now that I look back, I'm like, you shouldn't talk to me like that in front of other people. If there's a problem, you can talk to me about it privately, and you don't have to raise your voice at me. And whether I was in the wrong or not, it's still very embarrassing because he wouldn't like that to happen to him. And so I don't like that these leaders think that they can just talk to you any kind of way because they have a title and because they have some sort of authority. I wish I would have stood up for myself at that time, but at the time I thought, I can't even dare look at him in the eyes, or I'll get into home worship or something. But yeah, he rebuked me in front of everybody, and not even for like I didn't even do anything on that trip. It was I remember I was asking a married sister, oh, what is it like to be married? Because that was something that I wanted at the time. So this sister went and told the leader, and he's like, how dare you ask that kind of question? You're not a good example. I hear all the things that you talk about. And I'm just like, what's so bad? What's so wrong about asking a sister about what it's like to be married? Like, who am I going to ask? A single sister?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, just getting rebuked for something that to me is not even like, it's not a big deal, but you feel the need to yell at me about this in front of everybody, embarrassing me. And so that to me was like, now that I didn't see it as a red flag before, but now that I'm out, I'm like, I should have started looking things up and questioning things during that time.
Yeah, for sure. And man, just hearing you say that, it like brings so many emotions, because it's not right, Um, and it's just crazy because and just by the way, like
Yeah.
that's very humble of you, to have handled it the way that you did. And it just shows, the we're not perfect. None of us are, but it shows your character compared to supposedly the person of God who's over there, bullying. That's what it is, right? That's
Mhm.
exactly what they were doing. They had the situation where they perceived something that they didn't like, and instead of doing what you did and humbling themselves, right, or doing something better than what they did, they decided to take the petty road, which is put you on blast in front of everybody, abuse their
Mhm.
authority, try to poke fun at you, try to humiliate you, try to make you
Yeah.
feel bad, and again, these are the fruits of the true church. I mean, really, this is crazy to me. And let me ask you this: was the leader that you mentioned two stories? Was it the same leader that rebuked you both times, or was it a different one?
What was the other story?
The first one you said it was about the that when someone was being trying to say something serious, you kind of felt like you wanted to laugh, so you held it in. And then the second one, when he got mad and he rebuked you about that, and then you said
Hmm.
that you asked a sister about being married, a married sister, about what it was like to get married, and you got rebuked
Yeah.
for that. What did the person that rebuked you and the other situation, was it the same person?
Same person. Yep.
Hmm. Okay. So
Same
yeah,
person. Yeah.
I know you don't want to name drop, but I just want to say, like, I've heard from the East Coast, because I also see listening to Corey's story, and the way
Yeah.
that they bullied her, and Esperanza's story, and like this place is a lot of them are just a bunch of bullies. And I just want to say, like, as a man, like, if you have to like humiliate sisters like this, like, that just speaks to what kind of man you are. I wouldn't even call you a man at that point. And for them calling you a weasel, I think that was more of a weasel move on them. That's more of a weenie move on them to act like that, towards members. And is I feel like a lot of these people who have the authority, I think they might suffer from little man syndrome, where they have to overcompensate. And when they feel like they have this authority. And I think that I always heard this saying where it's like, if you really want to know somebody's true colors, give them a little bit of power. And I think that a lot of these members, that hold a little title, and again, what are titles in a fake organization, a fake church anyway? What is a missionary or a pastor or an elder, to a fake church, So again, these people a lot of them just suffer from, a case of little man syndrome. But anyway, do you have any other stories like that?
Yeah, so I want to mention, I don't want to say the person's name, but you know him very well, because I believe you had like a heated debate with him and he couldn't win, or so it was him. Yeah. But I do have another story. I don't know if I want to mention it now, because it kind of goes with like how I kind of like left the church. So I want to save it till later. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So so while you're in the church, like how was your life going at that time? Because you seem like you were in a good place with your family, you were going to school, yeah, you were doing good for yourself, and so you joined this church. Now years go by. How do you feel your life is going, like during your the middle of your run there? Like, how'd you start feeling? Like, where were you in life?
So my like spiritual life was great, like gospel worker, preaching, practicing, going short term, but my physical life was in shambles. It was absolutely horrible. I couldn't keep a job to save my life. And whenever I would have a job opportunity, a lot of them I had to like say no to because they needed me on Saturday. Not only that, but because I was focusing so much on my spiritual life and the gospel, I wasn't taking care of my health. And so my health started to decline. But I thought to myself, well, like Father's coming tonight, Father's coming tomorrow. Like, I don't have to take care of my physical health. It's fine. And so really just everything in my physical life was just absolutely horrible. Nothing was going as planned. And, I didn't really have any like goals and dreams, or I didn't have anything that I wanted to pursue, because my mindset was like, Father's literally coming tonight. Father's coming tomorrow. Father can come at any given moment. So why am I going to try and focus on something in the world when it's absolutely meaningless? And I also just want to say one thing too. If there's any members or leaders that are watching this, they may say, oh, well, I was able to finish college. I was able to get a degree. I was able to accomplish this and accomplish that. Just because you were able to accomplish certain things doesn't mean that you can discredit my experience. Doesn't mean that, everyone should be able to accomplish certain things. Doesn't mean that, it doesn't take away from my experience. I felt like, how do I say this? It was hard for me to try and pursue anything in my physical life because my mindset was, Father is coming. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve that. I don't deserve to go back to school. I don't deserve a good job. So even though one member that may be in had a mindset of, okay, Father's coming, but I can still accomplish these things, my mindset wasn't like that. My mindset was like, I don't deserve that. So I just want to mention that because I don't want members or leaders that are watching to discredit members or ex-members' opinions or ex-members' experiences, because everyone's experience is completely different. So,
Yeah, that's actually a good point because it ties into a lot of different things,
yeah.
different people's experiences. Because every time, like, when I remember when the missionary Ron Ramos video came out and he was talking
Hmm.
about the racism that he experienced and saw firsthand in the church. And what did the church do? They immediately made a response video where they show, black brothers and sisters, Mexican brothers and sisters, and it's, oh, we got churches everywhere, and we're not
Hmm.
racist, and oh, the Church of God doesn't separate families. Look, these people had, kids, but again, if they did, okay, good for them, but that's their experience. And a lot of times they did those things despite being in the church, not because, if you really follow the church doctrine to a T,
Yeah,
you wouldn't do that. They're so
exactly.
again, they're very adaptive, and they're very cunning when it comes to like showing what benefits them, but they don't
Hmm.
show. How come they don't show like all the broken families that they've messed with? How come they don't show all the
Hmm.
people that had something going for them in life, like a career, their education, and that they lost it because of this place? They only
Yep.
show the exceptions, the ones that who were able to get it, but really by
Hmm.
like a miracle, because it's so hard to accomplish anything while you're in this place, and again, this is not just our experience. This is the same stories I hear all over the world. So if anyone
Hmm.
accomplishes anything while you're in that place, even though it's very hard,
Hmm.
is definitely the exception, not the rule. um but anyway, so yeah, so life was hard during that time. So let me ask you this, but again, it's fascinating that you say like your spiritual life was on point, but your physical life is in shambles. And
Hmm.
again, that's how they make you feel like you're on the right path. They don't care if you have mental health issues, if your
Hmm.
physical health is not doing well, if you're getting older and you don't have nothing to show for yourself, a career, an education, a good job, family, kids. They don't care about any of that. All they care
Hmm.
about is keeping you in the mindset that Father can come tomorrow, and as long as you're paying your tithe, as long as you're contributing, bringing members, they don't care
Hmm.
about what you're going through. And I think that says a lot about them. But God forbid you stop tithing, because then they will care about your physical life all of a sudden. They'll make sure you get a
Hmm.
job. They'll tell you, they'll bring up all kinds of verses of Malachi and are you robbing God and all,
Yep.
on and on and on. So they do care about your physical life when it benefits them, And again,
Exactly.
it goes back to seeing the fruits of this place, for what they really are. So Milolo, now we're getting to my favorite part of your story. So,
Okay.
what was it that like when and how did you start waking up? What was that
Hmm.
process to that ultimately got you to where you ultimately left?
Okay. So I feel like my leaving story starts back in like 2022.
Okay.
So um, it's 2022, and I was 28 years old, and I remember just looking at my life. Actually, I had moved out, but then I had to move back in with my family. Um, and I remember just looking at my life and thinking to myself, I have no college education. I don't have a job at this moment. I have not accomplished anything. I literally have nothing. I had to move back home, and just to be transparent, I was literally sleeping on my mom's couch. And I just thought to myself, like, where did my life go? I didn't realize how much time that I spent in the church. And I remember one time I went to go pick up my little brother from school, I'm sorry, from work, and we're driving, and out of nowhere, I just burst out crying. And I don't even know why I started crying, but I literally just started crying uncontrollably. And so I decided to try and seek medical help. and I was actually diagnosed with severe depression.
Mhm.
And I at that time in my life, I felt worthless. I felt like I didn't want to do anything with my life. What is the point? All I've been doing is just preaching, practicing, and studying. While, people that I know from my past, they're getting married, they're going for their bachelor's, their master's, their doctorates, they're having children, they're moving up in their companies, they're starting businesses. But I've literally done nothing with my life up until this moment. And so I actually had to take some time away and spend time with family in a different state because I was a complete mess. And then after getting away for a little bit, I came back and I made like a little plan for myself. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I can do this everyday gospel anymore. I felt that in me. I felt like I need to take a little bit of a break. And so I started looking for work and I started working again. And then I'm like, you know what? I need to start enjoying myself and just stepping away from the church a little bit. And so me stepping away at the time was just really just, you know, taking Sunday for me. I took my Sundays off. And I started working again. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I want to start doing things that I used to do before. And I remember my very first thing that I did was I went to an amusement park. And I was a bit hesitant to go because I didn't have any, like, my family didn't want to go with me at the time. I didn't have any friends, and I couldn't ask anybody in the church because it's not allowed. So I was hesitant to go by myself, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go anyway. And so I went and I had so much fun. And I felt that sense of like freedom. I'm like, wow, like I'm enjoying myself on a Sunday. It just felt so good. And so after that, I'm like, okay, yeah, Sundays are for me. I'm not doing this all day Sunday gospel. Forget that. And so I started doing things again. And I started going to concerts and I started, going to comedy shows, just normal, regular, everyday things. I wasn't doing anything bad. I was just enjoying what life has to offer, going on hikes and, going on trips and stuff. And I started to feel alive again. I started to feel like I was getting myself back. And then I continued to do this all throughout 2023. But then I noticed that the sermons were very, very strong. And the head leader in the East Coast, after the sermon, he would say things like, I want things to go back to how it used to be when I first came to America. I want things to be like how it used to be back in the Ridgewood days, back when Ridgewood first opened. And at the time, I'm thinking to myself, like, I can't go back to that. I'm talking with other sisters that I'm close with, and they don't want to go back to that. Those By this point, I'm like 9 years in the church, and I'm tired. I'm tired of living this gospel every single day life. I still believe in the truth, but I wanted to take a break and I wanted to take care of myself. And so I started to pick up that the sermons and the things that they were saying were just a little too strong. And so from there, I heard about a member that left, and a sister was like, "Oh, hey, did you hear about this person that left?" No, I didn't hear about it. Let me try and find out. So then I go on Instagram and I try and look and see who. I tried to do my investigation, like who's the one that left. And so Corey's name popped up, and I'm like, "Oh, it's definitely not Corey." But then, like 2, 3 weeks later, another sister came up to me. She's like, "Oh, hey, did you hear that Corey left?" And I'm like, "What? Corey? Like Corey in New Windsor?" And I was like, there's no way that she left. And from there, that's when I went on her page and I started reading everything that she posted on her page. And I was so shocked. And the reason why I was so shocked is because I remember she went to Korea, and I remember that the trip that she went on, Mother said something like, all the members that went on this trip have enough faith to enter heaven. So the fact that she left, even though Mother said that, made me think like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And yeah, um, and so from there, I started researching and I started reading everything that Corey posted. Apart from that, I saw other pages and I started reading. And I wasn't looking for um, evidence against the church. I just really wanted to know their story and why they left. And from there, I started watching videos, and it resonated with me because I'm like, wow, I'm not the only one that's looking for their life back. I'm not the only one that forgot their favorite food, their favorite color, their favorite movie. Like, I had completely lost myself. And I thought I was the only one that felt that way. But listening to all the other ex members, I'm like, wow, okay, what I feel is totally normal. And so from there, then I started getting into the doctrine, like, specific videos about the doctrine. And I even remember coming across one of your videos where you said you never have peace in the church. And that really resonated with me because I'm like, it's true. I never really felt like I ever had peace. And so it's the ending of 2023. I'm researching, I'm still going to the church. And then I felt like inside, I felt to myself, I don't know if I can continue to keep a full Sabbath anymore. I don't know if I can go every Saturday. And then 2 weeks later, my dad passed away, and I was taking care of all of those things. And then 2 weeks after that, my car got stolen and totaled. And so I have no car. My dad just passed away. It's the new year, 2024. There's so many different things that are going on. Now my mind is not focused on, like, keeping Sabbath and going every Saturday and preaching, practicing all of that. And from there, I'm like, okay, instead of me going to the church right after work, now I can just go home because I have no car. And so I spent time watching videos about the doctrine, about King David, Melchizedek. And it was so hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that those sermons are made up and that they don't come from Unsung Hong and that they're not true. It was so hard. Even though I saw the evidence right then and there, I had to continue to watch those videos over and over again in order for me to really understand that these sermons are not correct. They're made up. It took me a while to get through. It took me a while to come to the conclusion that their doctrine is incorrect. And so now it's March/April of last year, and I have finally realized that, okay, this church is not the true church. But I'm afraid to leave because if I leave, 7 demons are going to enter me and I'm going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, maybe I can just stay for the community. Maybe I can just stay because I have a few friends here and there. But it became very uncomfortable for me to pray in Unsung Hong's name. It became very uncomfortable for me to sing the new songs. I could not get myself to do it. And so when I got a car again, I went back to the church. I went to the church, but I didn't go as frequently as I used to before. And I just started to slip away, and I continued to watch the videos, even though I was still in the church. And then I started reaching out to ex-members here and there. I reached out to Corey, to Anthony. I reached out to so many others because I was afraid to leave because I'm like, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to make a mistake. And that's what I was pretty much battling all of last year. And then this year comes up, and I just had this feeling inside me where I'm like, I can't continue here. And so I tried making plans to leave, but I would chicken out. And then that's when I started to reach out to you and ask you if you can do, certain sermons over, even though I knew it's not true, but I just, it's like I needed to hear it again or something. And then I made a plan that I was gonna go for a service one more time and then talk to my team leader and let her know I will no longer be attending. But that's not how it happened. Mm. So I remember talking to a sister. I pulled her to the side after a service and I said, I just want to let you know, you've only been in this church for 3 years. I don't want you to waste 12 years like how I did. I'm letting you know that this church is a cult. And I showed her all the evidence and stuff that I found. And I tried to see if she can join a Zoom call so she can, see from an ex-member that this church is not the true church. Because at the time I couldn't really defend. And she apparently spoke to someone in the church about it. She didn't say my name, but I still don't know 100%. And so I remember my leader trying to talk to me, and I said, "Well, I don't really have anything to talk to you about. Like, what do you want to talk about?" So I went to a service, and after service, he asked if I can speak with him, and I said, "I have nothing to talk to you about." So him and my group leader literally chased me to my car, saying, "If you don't talk with us, then you can't come back to the church." And I said, "Well, what do you want to speak about?" And he said, "Well, you know what you said to the sister." And I'm just like, "Well, the conversation that I had with the sister was between me and her. Um, I don't have anything to say to you. I'm not trying to cause any trouble, but I don't feel like I have to disclose whatever I spoke to the sister about with you." And because I wouldn't speak to him about whatever we spoke about, he decided to kick me out of the church. And so he's like, "You know what? You're not allowed to come back. We'll let you know about Passover. You can keep home worship for now and prove your faith." And so I was I it was very hard for me because I got kicked out of the group meets. I was blocked by sisters. Sisters wouldn't even respond to my messages. And I felt anxiety, And I even thought about going back and speaking to the leader because I was scared. I'm like, I felt alone. But I'm like, you know what, Milolo, you've been wanting to leave. You know, this is not the church. Take it as a sign to leave. And so I felt like that was a sign from God. Like, okay, you know what? You're not making the move. I'm gonna literally push you out of the church. And so, yeah, that's pretty much how things happen. That's like how I got out of the church.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy because there's so much there. And I can just the sense of betrayal, you know what I mean? Like you trust these people with everything. And it's like there is no secrets that, even if you have good intentions to help people, like when they're
Yeah.
so lost in the sauce, like that all they think about is just protecting the church. And they have no idea what we're as members, what we're going through. And and then also the how they chased you like after the fact. Like it's just so crazy. Again, another weenie move, by on the part of these leaders. Like, what are they? It's bullying tactics. It's what it
Mhm.
is. They're trying to get something out of you. Like they're trying to. Did you feel pressured, like pressed by them while when they're chasing you outside and trying to get something out of you?
I did, but I stood my ground. I'm like, I'm not letting you know whatever me and the sister spoke about. It was literally a conversation between me and her. And I just want to say, like, I wasn't trying to cause any problems or trouble. That's not the kind of person that I am. I was really, really just trying to help because they hide so much information. They say that if you look online, you're going to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. um, but in reality, if you go online, you're going to find out the truth of this church. You're going to find out that you've been in a cult and you're going to leave, which is what you should do. And so I was really just trying to help the sister. Um, Sometimes I still feel bad about how things went down because, I didn't want to make her question her faith. If you want to continue to believe in Ansang Hong and Zangel Ja as, God, then that's up to you. But I at least just wanted to show her the information, the other side that the church does not hide, that the church hides, so
Yeah, and that's, I think that that's pretty honest, because again, the members that are in, even including the leaders, I've talked to a lot of leaders and they don't know half the stuff that the church keeps from them, and so you just want, again, like you said, I 100% agree with you. I think it's crazy, but I do not mind if somebody, decides to stay in there after seeing and examining all the evidence. What I have a
Yeah.
problem with is when members say, no, 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 I'll never leave father and mother, and, you can't, hinder my faith, and you're lying to me, and you're doing this and you're
Mhm.
doing that, when in reality they haven't seen all the evidence. And that's all you want to do is you don't have an ill will towards the members, because we were members, and all
Yeah.
and we went through, like, I mean, just listening to your story, how exhausting it was, and everything that you went through. And again, sorry to hear about your father. I'm sorry to hear about, the depression, and all these things. Like, it's crazy what we go through in that place, and yet we're still made out to be the bad guys,
Yeah.
and for what? To try to help people, and again, it's just so telling about that place, that they literally do anything, to try to keep people from trying to investigate them. What are they so scared about?
Mhm.
And honestly, the whole eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, like, honestly, WMSCOG, if you're watching this, which I know you do, by the way, change it up. I'll give that one up already, because at this point, you guys just sound toxic. Like, the eating
Mhm.
from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Half your members are on. Let's be transparent. You guys have an internet team that you guys literally send to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So get rid of that one. That one don't work no more. You know what I mean? Just call it what it is. Call a spade a spade. You guys don't want members to see you for what you really are. You guys don't want them
Yeah.
to read all the books that An San Hong wrote. You guys don't want them to see what you guys removed from, his books. You don't want the members to investigate the real origins of the church. Where did An San Hong really get his teachings from? Because once members start investigating, your whole house falls down like a deck of cards, and
Yep.
it's domino. It's a wrap after that. You can't unsee it. Of course, some members will try to suppress it under the rug, sweep it under the rug, but once you see it, like, it's so hard to ignore, and
Yeah.
I would just, it's just a matter of time from there. But Milolo, do you got let me ask you this, like, so now that you're out, how do you
Mhm.
feel? How is life going for you?
Oh my God. Um, Life is so much better. Um, last year, I was last year, I was still keeping the Sabbath, but I was very in and out, and I wouldn't keep a full Sabbath. So it's like I had my freedom back, but not 100%. But now that I'm out, I have my freedom back. I feel at peace. I'm not in any current church right now. I'm kind of like taking a break from that, but I have peace again, and my relationships with my mom and my brothers are restored. I can talk with them normally. I have this like I have like hope for life again. When I was in the church, I had no hope for life, and you know, even like going to see a waterfall or anything, it would just be like, oh, it's okay. But now it's like I see the beauty in everything, and I feel at peace, and I'm so happy. But and my physical life has taken a huge turn. Like it's now I'm back to where I should be. I feel like an actual adult. I'm not relying on my family or anything. Um, but part of me still feels a little bit bad for the members that are stuck there. For the members that want to be there, that want to be lost in the sauce, I don't really care. But I know that there's members that are like me that are questioning, that, are looking for an escape. to get out. And I feel like for the East Coast, it's 10 times harder. I feel like, I mean, I've never been to like, I don't know, North Dakota or whatever, but I can only imagine that it's probably not as like developed compared to like the East Coast. East Coast, it's like everybody knows everybody. And the more you dedicate, now when you try and leave, it gets so much harder. If you're someone that would like be in and out, or if you're in for maybe a year, it's so much easier for you to leave if you want to leave. But if you've dedicated your entire life, especially if you're like in the New York, New Jersey area, it is so difficult to leave. And so my heart really does go out to members that are stuck in the church that want to leave, but you know, it's they're scared. And that's why I did this interview. I don't really like to put myself out there, but I only want to do it because I want to pay it forward. Watching your interview, Anthony, Kelsey, Jordan, everyone's interview helped me in so many ways. I literally picked up a little bit of this and a little bit of that from um, each ex-member story. So, life is so much better now, and I just my hope is that more members can come out. And I also just want to say too that I could have continued keeping home worship after I got kicked out. And so, I don't know if there's any rumors about me or anything, but I just want to make it clear that the reason why I stopped going is because I no longer believe that Ansang Hong and Zangko Ja is God. Now, as sad as this may sound, if if this church is a true church, which is not, I would stay even if we're being treated poorly because I don't want to risk my salvation. But because I know that this church is not the true church, I cannot continue to stay. I cannot continue to worship a fake God.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Milolo, let me ask you that. First of all, that was great, and I want to say that I'm very proud of you for doing this, and I guarantee you that your story is going to help so many people. I already know it, and again, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited for this. I'm excited for you because you look like you're in such a good place, and I'm happy for you. And I'm glad that you said what you said, that that there is answers. Because let me ask you this: you've studied. Have you seen for yourself that there is answers to counteract the sermons that they say is like unrefutable, that no one can refute these sermons? Is there answers for those hard questions?
Absolutely 100%. I've seen it myself.
And so also, you've looked into a lot of the church history. Does the church history, that real church history, right, does it add up to what you were taught in the beginning at the WMSCOG?
None of it adds up, and it's actually quite it's the only word that comes to mind is disgusting. It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
It is crazy. It is very crazy. And yeah, it's just, the one thing I will say is that I haven't had one member on here, or I haven't seen, other platforms with, when they interview members, and I haven't heard one member say my life has gotten worse since leaving the WMSCOG. Everybody's life gets a whole lot better once you leave. And, of course, it's scary, right? It's scary because you really believe that this place is the truth. You're so lost in the sauce. You think there's no answers, only they have the perfect truth. They do a good job of shunning you. They do a good job of, making you feel like you're all alone. And I just want to say, that for the members that could be watching this, like, you owe it to yourself to do the research, reach out. If what you believe is the truth ain't gonna go nowhere. Truth ain't gonna hide, right? So 2 + 2 = 4, no matter who I go ask. Even if they lie to me, if I come back later, if 2 + 2 really equals 4, the answer's still gonna stay the same, right? So what are you so scared about asking? And to the members that might feel like, because again, one big thing that I hear a lot is like when members leave, they feel so alone. And I just want to say, I'm I'm not going to reveal or leak, too much information, but what would the members think, the members that are in there that are kind of like borderline, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and they're like, man, if I leave this place, I have nothing. What if I was to tell you that there's a huge community out there of ex-members? What if I was to tell you that members are starting to gather together and even have, annual meetups, and we're just hanging out and kicking it, not being lost in the sauce? Like, I'm telling you, like, enjoy your life. Those who choose to still want to believe in God, those who want to take a break, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But what does matter is you got to get out of that toxic environment, because that place is lying to you. It's not good for you. One, any place or anybody that's trying to get you to not research, to not hear the other side of the argument, you have to, like, raise a red flag, has to raise in your head, and, like, you got to really ask yourself if that place is honest, And so, once again, Milolo, I just want to thank you for your time and for being brave enough to share your story with everybody. And I want to ask you one last question. So, for members that are potentially watching this right now, what advice would you give, to a current member that could be on the fence right now about staying or leaving? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to, I feel like throughout the years, there's always been a little voice inside of us that's been screaming at us, but we've always suppressed it. If that voice ever comes up again, and I'm sure it will, listen to that voice. Whether it's telling you to research, to ask certain questions, um, to talk to an ex-member, listen to that voice because it's guiding you correctly. It's not Satan, it's not the evil one, it's not a demon that's trying to bother you or anything. Your intuition is always going to lead you in the right way. And so if you feel like there's something wrong, listen to that voice and see where it takes you. And it's like, don't let this life go by and not accomplish anything, not accomplish any of your goals or your dreams. Um, if you find yourself 30 years old and feeling like it's too late, it's not too late. You're still very young. There's still so many amazing things that you can accomplish. You still have so much more time. And so really, like, listen to that inner voice that's guiding you in the right way, and don't feel like you've lost the best years of your life, because your life really, 30s is the new 20s, and you really feel like your life is just getting started. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and pick yourself back up, and enjoy your life, Again, don't let these people make you feel miserable for living your life. The Bible even tells you that whatever you do it for the glory of God, right? And so these people make you feel guilty about anything. Earlier I was listening to you saying, like, yeah, I was going to concerts, I was going to, comedy shows, and you're like, but I'm not doing anything bad. And we feel the need to, like, say that because we
yeah.
know that members are thinking, like, oh my gosh, she was going to a comedy event. Like, seriously, guys, like,
Exactly.
these people make you feel guilty about anything. Like, you can't, how depressing, how bad is that for your mental, to literally question yourself, for even having a doubt, for having a question, for it's sad,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so once again, Milolo, just thank you for your time. And for everybody that was listening to this episode, I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know that I really did. And for everyone that's been supporting this channel, I really want to thank you, because it's because of you guys that this channel is growing and is continuing to grow. And also, you guys asked and I listened, right? So you guys asked for the merchandise. This is the first official shirt of Defusing the WMSCOG, lost in the sauce. So get your gear, get your gear. The link to get these shirts are going to be on the description of this video. And yeah, anyone that wants to come on here and share your story, please reach out. Just know that we're not here to judge you, even if a lot of members, they want to stay anonymous. They don't, we don't reveal anybody's information, anybody's name. If you just want to have a conversation, if you just want to unload, if you want to tell me why I'm a false prophet, why I'm going to hell, I don't care. Hit me up. I will listen to you. I promise I won't judge you. But if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer. And again, that this is why we do it. And I just hope that more members come out, and that they get to get their life back, enjoy your family, and enjoy this world that God made. There's so many beautiful places, travel, do something with your life, But yeah, until then, please do me a favor. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, please comment, please share. And this helps us, get these videos out to more members that could really use, these kind of videos to help them, because I really believe that every member that comes and tells their story, it's just a domino effect, and I know that this story is going to help so many people. So I'm just thankful for everything that's happening. I'm thankful to you, Milolo. I'm thankful to everybody that's been on the channel. And I hope that, we can continue to, be a platform where we allow people to come on here and share their stories. And until next time, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Defusing the WMSCOG.